Imagine being 17, a girl on the cusp of adulthood, handed a beautiful bouquet. But it's not just flowers. It's your passport. It's a passport to a country you've barely visited, a life you can hardly comprehend, and to a man you've met just twice. A man 14 years your senior, who's openly, hopelessly in love with someone else, and who just happens to be the heir to the most militarized, formidable throne in all of Europe. Talk about pressure, right? This isn't your grandma's fairy tale. Forget glass slippers and true love's kiss. This is high-stakes European poker played with living, breathing human pieces. On June 11, 1829, Augusta of Saxe-Weimar-Eisenach walked down the aisle of Berlin's Royal Chapel. She wasn't just entering a marriage. She was stepping straight into a Cold War alliance decades before anyone even dreamed up the term. Prussia, a rising power, desperately needed Russia's continued favor. Russia, ever the strategist, liked having compliant buffer duchies on its western flank. And Augusta's tiny Grand Duchy of Saxe-Weimar-Eisenach, well, it simply needed to stay on the map, period. One marriage, 3 empires, and absolutely zero room for romance. The stakes couldn't have been higher. Let's set the scene. Europe, 1829. Napoleon's reign of terror is a recent, raw memory, and the continent is still reeling. Treaties feel like they're held together by little more than candle wax and a pervasive sense of paranoia, every crown twitching nervously. Prussia, a military powerhouse, sits like a steel boot right in the middle of it all, its legendary army a constant presence. But its dynasty, the mighty Hohenzollerns, is fractured. Crown Prince Frederick William, charming and artistic, is almost certainly sterile, or at least unable to produce an heir. That leaves his younger brother, William, a Korea soldier who'd much rather charge a cannon than navigate a ballroom to secure the future of the royal line. Enter Augusta, the second daughter of the scholarly Grand Duke of Saxe-Weimar-Eisenach. Her mother, Grand Duchess Maria Pavlovna, isn't just any royal. She's a Russian Grand Duchess by birth and a matchmaker by sheer strategic vocation. Maria looks at her small duchy, strategically wedged between the ambitions of Bavaria and the might of Prussia, and she sees potential lunchmeat, her solution. Ingenious, really, marry her teenage daughter to the Prussian spare heir. Then, wrap that crucial alliance in a ribbon of her own imperial connections. Augusta being a niece of Emperor Nicholas I of Russia. Presto, survival secured. It was a masterclass in dynastic politics. William, at 31, isn't exactly a fresh-faced youth, and he's already nursing a profoundly broken heart. For years, he's been hopelessly, passionately in love with his cousin, Eliza Radziwiłł. She's a woman of dazzling wit, intelligence, and beauty, but disastrously, for a royal heir she's only of middling noble rank. This simply won't do for the Prussian throne. His father, the future King Frederick William III, puts a swift and brutal end to that romantic daydream, delivering a cold, pragmatic decree. You will marry useful, but beautiful. The message is clear. Duty trumps desire, always. So William reluctantly seeks a suitable bride. When he meets Augusta, he writes to his sister with a telling confession. brimming with a lack of enthusiasm. She is nice and clever, but she leaves me cold. It's hardly a ringing endorsement, is it? Yet, duty is duty. He salutes, he proposes, and the betrothal is announced before the poor girl has even had a chance to unpack her trunks or truly grasp the monumental shift in her life. His heart, however, remains stubbornly with Eliza, a miniature portrait of her reportedly kept on his desk for decades. Augusta turns 17 the very month of her engagement. She's been raised in the cultured, intellectual haven of Saxe-Weimar-Eisenach, steeped in Goethe, piano, sonatas, and the progressive ideals of the Enlightenment. None of that, she quickly discovers, appears on the rigid Prussian court syllabus. Berlin is a world of uniforms, parades, and a stifling, militaristic sobriety. Conversation seems to halt the moment she enters a room, and the atmosphere is far from the lively intellectual salons of her youth. Still, she tries. Kay learns Protestant hymns, smiles politely through endless formal banquets, and desperately hopes that affection might, somehow, grow. Kay doesn't. On their wedding night, William is perfectly polite, impeccably formal. But his mind, she senses, is already back to reminiscing about Eliza. It's a devastating realization for a young bride who'd hoped for genuine connection. Augusta, with her sharp intellect and keen observational skills, captures the essence of her new reality in her diary. I am a parcel that has been correctly addressed and delivered. What a chillingly accurate summary of her fate. Within months, those initial differences between them don't just appear, they calcify into impenetrable walls. Augusta loves the theater, finding solace and stimulation in its drama. William dismisses it as frivolous. She devours Rousseau, exploring radical ideas of social contract and individual freedom. He's poring over artillery manuals, absorbed in the mechanics of warfare. Augusta laughs loudly, a spontaneous, joyful sound. But court etiquette dictates that ladies merely titter discreetly behind their fans. In private letters to his sister, William complains of her lack of femininity. What he really means, of course, is that she possesses opinions, voices them, and isn't content to simply be a silent, decorative presence. Augusta, for her part, finds the Prussian royal palace a grim, uninviting place, famously describing it as a barracks with chandeliers. It's a perfect encapsulation of their clashing worlds. The birth of their son, Frederick, in 1831, buys them a temporary truce. An heir is produced, applause all around, but the marriage itself quickly settles into a state of armed neutrality, a cold peace maintained by rigid adherence to public duty. Two formidable personalities further widen the chasm between Augusta and William. First, there's Crown Princess Elizabeth, Augusta's sister-in-law, a devout, almost mystical woman who genuinely believes novels are Satan's handiwork. She and Augusta eye each other with the wary suspicion of porcelain cats, their personalities and worldviews utterly incompatible. Then, there's a rising junker, a young, ambitious nobleman named Otto von Bismarck, dispatched to court as a political firefighter. Augusta mistrusts him on sight, sensing a dangerous pragmatism. Bismarck, never one to mince words, returns the favor. famously labeling her the liberal weed in the Hohenzollern garden. William, always eager for masculine company and sharing Bismarck's conservative, military-focused outlook, instinctively sides with the soldier-politician. This alliance leaves Augusta quietly but effectively frozen out of policy discussions she was once encouraged to join, her political influence systematically undermined by her husband's new favorite. By her mid-20s, Augusta is battling what doctors today would recognize as manic depression, though court bulletins of the time euphemistically refer to it as nervous fever. Between these debilitating bouts, she throws herself into causes, finding purpose and intellectual engagement. She champions hospitals, orphanages, and women's education, pouring her considerable energy into philanthropy. She hosts scientists and Catholic thinkers, both groups equally suspect in the staunchly Protestant, conservative Berlin orthodoxy. Her intellectual salon becomes a refuge, a place where her mind can truly flourish, far from the stifling court. William, meanwhile, steadily promoted to general, spends half the year on military maneuvers, immersed in the world he understands best. When he is home, his routine is rigid. Dinner at 6, retired by 9, and affection measured, if at all, in silence. Their second child, Princess Louise, arrives in 1838, born more by calendar than by any lingering passion. Friends observe the chilling reality of their marriage. The royal couple can sit through an entire carriage ride, miles passing, without exchanging a single sentence. It's a portrait of profound emotional distance, a life lived in parallel, not together. And yet, despite the personal desolation, politically, the marriage is an undeniable triumph. Russia nods its imperial approval, Prussia's vulnerable western flank is secured, and tiny Saxe-Weimar-Eisenach, against all odds, keeps its palaces and postage stamps, its very existence guaranteed. When the tumultuous 1848 revolutions blaze across Germany, threatening to upend every throne, Augusta's extensive network of liberal contacts proves invaluable. She feeds William crucial intelligence, helping Prussia navigate and ride out the storm. The Hohenzollern dynasty survives, precisely as its architects had designed. On paper, this union is a 5-star review, a masterstroke of diplomacy and dynastic planning. In the drawing room, however, it's a 1-star Yelp rating, barely scraping by. Then, in 1861, William's older brother, Frederick William IV, dies childless after a long illness. William finally becomes King of Prussia, and Augusta, at 49, is his queen. She's still sharp, still politically astute, but still largely sidelined. Bismarck, now elevated to the powerful position of minister-president, makes it his mission to keep her far from the council table. Augusta, however, retaliates in the only ways she can. She cultivates a strategic, enduring friendship with Queen Victoria of Great Britain, a fellow powerful female monarch. She champions British-style constitutionalism, a subtle but potent challenge to Bismarck's autocratic leanings. Crucially, she quietly encourages the Crown Prince, her son, Frederick, to marry Victoria's daughter, also named Victoria. That wedding happens in 1858. laying the foundation for a significant Anglo-Prussian connection that will profoundly shape the nascent German Empire. Every dynastic chess piece she moves, every strategic alliance she fosters, feels like a small, quiet revenge on the system that so casually used her. If these behind-throne stories, full of cunning and compromise, truly fascinate you, don't just sit there. Go ahead and whack that subscribe button. History looks so tidy in textbooks, doesn't it? But in real life, it's a knife fight, a constant battle for power and influence. And here, we unpack new brawls every single week. Old age, sadly, brings no reconciliation. Augusta's health steadily declines, plagued by rheumatism and other ailments. William's hearing goes, turning even simple conversations into shouting matches over breakfast. The physical infirmities only underscore the decades of emotional distance. Yet, when Augusta dies in 1890, the king orders court mourning for 6 weeks longer than protocol strictly demands. At the funeral, Bismarck, ever the stoic, stands dry-eyed. But witnesses report that William's hand trembles noticeably on the coffin. Whatever warmth might have existed between them burned out decades earlier, leaving only the ashes of duty. But that partnership, however cold, however strained, had held an empire together. So, was it love or leverage? Augusta and William, in their long, complex union, answered that question for every political marriage in history. Their union, born of necessity, secured a dynasty, reshaped the very map of Central Europe, and produced the future Emperor Frederick III, his own tragically brief reign, lasting only 99 days, saw his liberal hopes die with him, clearing the stage for the Germany we study today. Next time you catch a glimpse of a royal wedding on TV, all pomp and circumstance, remember Augusta's poignant diary entry, "I smiled because the crown required it, and learned that kingdoms are built on such smiles." History isn't a romance novel. It is, and always has been, a brutal board game played by people who rarely, if ever, get to choose their own squares. Enjoyed the intrigue? There's plenty more where that came from. Tap the next video for the tragic wives of Spain's Philip II d'Or. Binge the entire playlist on Europe's most calculating crowns. And hey, if you learned something new, give us a like and ring that bell so you don't miss the next power play.